Welcome back, tributes, to episode 66 of Into the Arena. I'm Holly.
I'm Emily.
And we have our amazing friend and tribute talk panelist, Gabby.
Hello.
Yay!
This is exciting.
This is exciting.
No, obviously, if you're listening or watching, you know what the episode's about. And if you listen or watch tribute talk, you'll know how smart Gabby is. I feel like you're probably like the smartest person that we know. And I feel like whenever we talk Ballad, especially like whenever we talk any of the books, but especially Ballad, you come out and you like pull out the points that like no one's ever noticed before. So Emily was like, we need Gabby. This is like the perfect episode for Gabby. So we're so excited to have you. But before we dive in, make sure that you're, again, watching Tribute Talk Thursdays, 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern. Can't miss Gabby live. So Tribute Talk, like always. And then join us for kind of finishing up the Scholastic read-along. Can't believe the summer's gone by. We are reading Mockingjay at this time. We're kind of like in the middle of Mockingjay, so it's not too late to join for the last book. And I feel like these are going to be really important discussions that we're going to be posting about. So really excited for that. And then don't forget to stop into your local bookshop and pick up your magenta copy of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes at Barnes and Noble. Ooh, it's so pretty.
It is pretty.
And the display is lovely.
Yes, Return to the Games. And I shamelessly went and asked my local Barnes and Noble employee if I could have one. And not the response I wanted, but I'm gonna ask around. So we'll see. They're trying to show love for the Hunger Games. So go get your copy. And we want to hear what your favorite part of the episode is, or what your favorite part of the interview is, if you have the copy, if you've read it. So go on to the comments on YouTube. Even if you listen to it, check out YouTube. And there we will pick somebody from the comments and send them the new magenta version. So just some fun. We want to have a conversation and have people get the magenta copy because it's so beautiful.
I feel like we should talk about Gabby a little bit. I mean, I know
Yeah.
you've introed yourself on Tribute Talk, but if anybody hasn't listened to Tribute Talk, could you talk about your history as like a Hunger Games fan?
Yeah, sure. I just want to say thank you again, guys, for having me on. Super honored. I love Tribute Talk, so this kind of feels like going into the big leagues, so thank you. So my history with the Hunger Games, maybe I was 10. How old were you, Holly, when it was
I
coming out?
was 11.
Y'all were
11, okay.
little.
So
Yeah.
I would have been 11 or 12 when it was
Mhm.
coming out. And like any normal avid reader, I'd go to my library, pick up whatever was on the shelf and read it. I loved it. However, most of the concepts went right over my head, as it should for someone who's 12, 13, and 14. But as I got older, like I attended the midnight premieres, enjoyed it, but it was just that something I enjoyed, a fictional piece that was wonderful. A couple years go by, I finished college and I pick up the series again. I'll look at it, I'm like, wow, this is literally has so many themes of what I've learned in school, and I can see how it applies to the real world today. And yeah, I fell in love with it again. And then it just so happens you guys started a podcast and I fell in love with that. And then the rest is history. And then now I'm obsessed with Ballad.
Like the first time you read it, did you enjoy it, or?
Yes, I
Okay.
immediately fell in love with it. Yeah,
'Cause I
right
did not.
from the first page, when she had the quotes from Hobbes, Rousseau, Locke. Whenever I read that page, I said, "This is the book for me." Yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, we're so happy to have you on here. And now to get a little bit more of your taste of the Hunger Games, we're going to do our quick rapid fire. There is no wrong answer, but maybe there actually is a wrong answer.
But there
sometimes, so
are.
be careful.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, what is your favorite Hunger Games book?
Oh, Ballad.
That's a controversial take.
I know.
What's your favorite Hunger Games movie?
Ooh, sorry, Chase. Catching Fire.
Ooh, okay. Favorite Hunger Games character?
It's PETA.
Right answer.
Yeah.
Least favorite Hunger Games character?
I want to give an answer that is not Gale.
Yes. I feel like we're
Um,
all expecting Gale, but
I wanna give something different because that's kind of I don't like Gale. Um,
Gale
I
Hatehead.
w- I would say probably Coin. Yeah,
Ooh, okay.
I feel like that's second most popular answer,
yeah,
probably. I love we
Yeah.
had another guest who said Thread.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, we don't
Oh,
like him. That's
that
a good
was
answer.
Professor Paradis.
Paradis, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good one.
Okay. Which district are you from?
okay. I think I'm from 12, but I actually have maybe I'm 11. I have no idea. Maybe 8,
Based on
11, or 12.
geography, you feel like
Yeah,
you're
cause
12?
well, the map. I tried looking at the map and figuring out where I'm specifically at in Tennessee, and it's not clear for me.
Is Lucy Gray dead or alive at the end of Ballad?
Oh, she's definitely alive.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And one last question. Are the cheese buns savory or sweet?
Okay, they are absolutely savory because of cheese.
Amen.
Cheese is not sweet. There you
Amen.
go. Yeah.
Gabby, were
Okay.
you there for the initial controversy?
I
Clash? I can't remember.
no,
It's
but
been
I
a
I remember
while, right?
listening to it and it was very funny.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so funny. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Who started that?
I think it was me
Was it you? Iconic, Holly.
because I always pictured hot chocolate, like because I had the cookbook and it taught you how to make the cheese buns, and they're savory cheese buns.
Might have been Chase throwing out a hot take too.
Yeah.
I don't
My
know.
my gut said Chase, but I didn't want to,
Yeah.
slander.
So as we go from such an important topic of are the cheese buns savory or sweet, we are going to dive in to the Q&A at the back of the Magenta or Barnes& and Noble exclusive copy of Ballad. So
Yeah. Since it just came out, I don't think so. I believe that the Q&A is the same Q&A in the hardback edition of the Barnes& and Noble exclusive, which has like a reader's guide with questions and then the Suzanne Collins Q&A in the back. But we've never talked about it before, and since it was reprinted in the Magenta edition, we thought that we would use it to talk about Ballad a little bit more, and with the biggest Ballad stan there is, Gabby.
yes.
I guess a question that I kind of wanted to start with before even getting into the Q&A is, do we think that Ballad is misunderstood as a book? I would assume you think yes, Gabby, since Ballad is your favorite, and it's definitely not a lot of people's favorite book in the series, even if they
Right.
like it.
It's definitely misunderstood. I would say the layout of it, how it's structured into 3 acts, it's a little bit different in that today that's just not common. When we're reading fiction, when we think of the Hunger Games, we think of action, we think of long stories of the arena with a specific like first point of view of that perspective. We have someone's inner dialogue, but this is just not that. This is very different. And so with the format changing, it also kind of it can distract some people from seeing the themes and points that are really important and actually makes it a lovely read.
Yeah, I saw a comment in the last week from someone who didn't like Ballad, and their comment was saying that I think this book was meant to make us feel bad for Snow, but I didn't feel bad for him. By the end, I ended up hating him even more. And I feel like some people might
Yeah.
be going in with the wrong idea. Like there's a group that was kind of upset about it being about President Snow because they thought it was going to be making you feel bad for him intentionally. But then I feel like people are going into the book sometimes expecting that. And then so thinking that Suzanne maybe missed the mark in what she was trying to do, but she was really trying to do something totally different and didn't want you to end the book liking President Snow more or feeling bad for him. So I think some people perceive that as kind of a failure, but it's actually a success on Suzanne's part.
Yeah, Koryo's character development is so well done, and that she keeps him consistent even if it's consistent, like going back and forth between hot and cold with Lucy, back and forth with like narcissistic tendencies or whatever it may be, this character is consistently like true to himself, very much so you can see Snow. And I think it's an incredible prequel.
I think it's also just so amazing because I was one of the people that absolutely despised it when it came out. Like, I remember
Mm.
watching this one video that I talk about all the time about this one guy hating on the book. And I was just like, I remember running down to my parents and being like, I finished it, but like, I didn't like it and I wish I didn't read it and I wish he didn't come out with it. Like, I was really, really
Aw.
harsh on it. But then I think it took like me reading it with people, like reading it with Emily, because we read it live together every night, like back in the day. And like just hearing people's perspectives on it and then piecing that together, I think made me love it because now it's not my favorite. Like I love The Hunger Games, it's my second favorite, but I just think just the ambiguity in it is beautiful and they talk about it a bit in the Q&A, which is my favorite part of the Q&A we'll get into later. But just the idea of the grayness, and even though Coriolanus stands for one philosophy and Lucy Gray and Sejanus stand for the other, there is sort of this question of who's the songbird, who is the snake, and figuring out that there isn't just a good or an evil, I guess, like an ultimate good or an ultimate evil. So I just,
Yeah.
Ballad is so good. And I think it just honestly is just so much deeper than, not deeper than, because like then you have Mockingjay, but as deep or deeper than the other books.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's well said.
Suzanne is still as much of a genius
Yeah.
today as she was when she wrote the trilogy, is how I feel.
Because like
Yes.
the initial idea of the Hunger Games is so beautiful and so deep, but then you have, I would argue, Mockingjay, which is just another level. But then there's Ballad, and I'm like, which one is more philosophical, or is there one that is stronger than the other? And I would argue that Ballad almost takes over that Mockingjay position.
I kind of agree in a way, because the trilogy is examining one main theme, right? Just
Mhm.
war.
Mhm.
And I feel like Ballad is, I mean, it's like nature versus
Mhm.
nurture, kind of, but there's a
Yeah.
bunch of different philosophical theories within that she's exploring. And I feel like each of
Mhm.
the main characters represent a different philosophical construct. So it does feel like there is more to digest in a way.
And that would make a lot of sense. If just war theory was a ball of yarn, then which could represent the Hunger Games trilogy, then Ballad is unwinding all this yarn, and it's like showing us this long string, and maybe there's different strings in this ball of yarn, but Ballad is unwinding this yarn. Deke is taking down just war theory and seeing, okay, where are the bits and pieces like that creates this? Where is its full logical end?
Yeah.
And how did it come to this in the
How do
first
we
place?
get there? How do the characters get to kind of what they believe?
Yeah.
So the book opens, we've talked about this a little bit before, but the book opens with these quotes. And I'm just kind of curious for us to talk about, what did you think when that's what you saw on the first page of this new book? And what quote resonates with you or stands out to you the most?
I remember seeing this and being like, oh, this is a big girl book right here.
Yeah,
Because
honestly, you open it and it feels like, whoa, this is kind of adult. This is an
yeah,
adult book thing to do.
yes. I just remember being like, okay. And I remember being really excited about it. And I think that's where I kind of let myself get really excited. Was for me, I was kind of hoping she would just spell it out for us in Ballad, but she doesn't. Like you have to dig for this information, kind of. Um, but I remember the one that I was most excited about was Mary Shelley's line. And I think I was most excited about that because I remember reading Frankenstein in school,
Hmm.
and like it was in our horror genre of literature. And I'm like, whoa, we have like a classic horror quote in a Hunger Games book. And I was like, but how does it tie into these other like philosophical thoughts and these philosophers? And I don't know, I think that was the one that I was just most excited about, not because of content, but because of my understanding of it, I guess.
I love the Rousseau one. Man is born free and
Yes,
everywhere he is in chains. Just
I
for
love that.
it also feels very Suzanne Collins
Hmm.
because it's just one short, sweet, simple sentence that has
Yes.
so much impact.
Mm.
So I was like, yeah, that's something Suzanne would like.
My favorite was the same as yours, Emily, the Rousseau quote. Although it is such a short sentence, there's so much to it. And I can see how it connects to the other quotes too. But most importantly, like when I first read it, I immediately thought of like, oh, I have a feeling I know what this book is going to be about.
I
Yeah.
also love the we murder to dissect line from the Wordsworth
Mhm.
Hmm.
poem. I think that's just another short statement that's like so true about
It's so
humanity.
creepy, really creepy and really dark. But I also just love going back to the Frankenstein quote. I was really interested in the idea of like man playing God and like how that fits into Ballad, because I mean that's such like a common theme, obviously, in Frankenstein. And that was something that when I read that, I was like, okay, where's Suzanne going with this? Where's Miss Suzanne going?
So the Q&A kind of starts off with Suzanne explaining the three different philosophical viewpoints explored throughout Ballad. And she also kind of explains that each of the main characters, so Snow, Sejanus, and Lucy
Lucy.
Gray, all kind of represent one, which I guess I didn't fully connect those dots until reading this
Mhm.
Q&A, which I thought was
Yeah.
really cool. And I also really like how each of those quotes connect with one of the characters and how she laid it out. So the Hobbes quote is first, and that's Snow, and then the Locke quote, which Sejanus, and then the rest are kind of Lucy Gray. I think I feel like it's interesting that Lucy Gray and the Covey get more of the quotes.
I also like how she tied in not just Lucy Gray, but like you said, the Covey with her,
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was
because
surprising that she mentioned them as well and saw
Mhm.
Yeah.
them as a very important piece of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to reread Ballad with that lens.
Yeah.
Because I didn't make the Rousseau connection with the Covey.
Mhm.
I could see Hobbes with Corio and Locke with Sejanus and even Lucy. And I could see how Lucy Gray is more of a romantic, and that's where Rousseau kind of blends in with it. But the Covey, I totally missed that. So I think that's really interesting.
Especially because in the books, like, or in the book, I feel like they're not focused on at all. Like they're not main characters or even side characters. They're more of background characters until they start singing. And I think that's when all the big scenes around them happen. And so I don't know. I feel like for me, the first time I read Ballad, they were always just more background characters that didn't matter. But then here she's saying that they have like a huge impact on the philosophical thought behind her argument.
It would make sense if these background characters influence Lucy. They
Mhm.
heavily influence her. And I could see in that way they would be actually really important. But at first read, you don't they're just background characters.
I also just one line that stuck out to me was your opinion on who we were in the state of nature defines the form of government you think we need. I
Mhm.
thought, like reading that, I was like, oh, like you said, you want to experience Ballad with those character lenses. Like I want to experience Ballad knowing that fully as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting because that's true for the characters in Ballad, and the Hunger Games was also true
Mhm.
for us today.
Yeah.
How we inherently view humans,
Mhm.
how we view ourselves will determine what we think our value is, and from there go to how do we think we should govern, not just yourself, but your neighbor. And that can get really messy really quickly. So
Yeah. definitely.
One thing that kind of stuck out to me reading this and reading about John Locke and how
Hmm.
Suzanne is saying that reason was very important in that belief. The quote here that says men living together according to reason, I feel like that's why Sejanus seems so naive almost, because
Mm,
he's so grounded in this belief that people live in a state of reason,
mhm.
and when
Hmm.
people are doing these things that he doesn't think is reasonable, he like just completely shuts down and like doesn't understand it at
Yeah,
all.
he's
He like
totally
doesn't get
blindsided.
anyone who doesn't think that same way.
He is not in the gray just as much as Corio isn't.
So reading Rousseau, which is Lucy Gray and the Covey. So is Rousseau kind of anti-society? Am I like interpreting that correctly? Because that would align with Lucy Gray and how she always wanted to disassociate from being District 12 or being
Hmm.
capital, and like the Covey are their own thing. They're not a part of any
Yeah.
society. And it seems like that's what Suzanne is saying,
So,
but I don't understand the concept, I don't think, probably as
so
well as I should.
how I read Rousseau, I read him as like he doesn't approve of this society as it is, as it currently stands. And
Okay.
he has this vision of a different type of society. And so with Lucy and the Covey, I view the reason, their motive of not wanting to associate with the division is because they're hopeful of this other thing. They can see this other thing
Yeah.
and they don't want any part of this, like the killing, the
Mm,
divisiveness, the hatred. And so that's where
Yeah,
like romantic themes comes in because they do see more beauty in the dirt and the harshness and they choose that again and again.
they've kind of created their own society, really.
yeah.
That is the Covey.
Yeah, they believe in it so much that they'll just go ahead and make their own, which is really interesting.
Yeah, especially with reading it, just thinking back to the first time and always having Coriolanus ask Lucy, is she district, or questioning her identity and then telling capital citizens, well, she's not district. And by outlining that level of different classes as well, I think it just adds like a whole nother meaning to that as well.
Yeah, I could see how she is very class conscious and is trying to change that by not playing in it into it at all and not identifying as one or the other.
One thing that I thought was super interesting in this Q&A was related to Lucy Gray, and I guess we've always been talking about whether Suzanne had the story of Ballad in mind when she was
Oh,
writing the trilogy, or if it was something that she came up with completely later. What do you guys think? Let's open
I
that can
have
of worms again.
I have my best friend, Gabby, here with me today to talk all about it because she's the only one on my side. So, Gabby,
Yes.
take the mic, queen.
Yes, I totally think she does because one, she's a fantastic writer and
Mhm.
like I just know she has so much, like her imagination for Panem is just so broad. Like I just know like we are putting her in a box if we say there's no way, okay? That's
Mhm.
one thing.
Mhm.
Secondly, just for the sheer fact that the trilogy is so focused on just war theory, it would make sense if to the logical end is of all these philosophies lead they how they lead up to just war theory. It starts with the human
Mhm.
condition and how you view humans. It would logically make sense if she is writing out like this plot, all these different characters. Like there is absolutely no way she wouldn't first start with what does it mean to be human and then go from there. And how do you write Gale with that view of what does it mean to be human? How do you write Katniss with that perspective? How do you write Snow? And I think that's where she started from with the with in mind just for a theory. But But in Ballad is the proof that she did start from there. So
Mhm.
like
Mic drop.
it logically makes sense.
How
And
much of the story do you
no,
think she
okay,
had in her mind, though?
I kicked
Well,
that off to Holly.
thank you so much, Gabby.
Yeah.
But she had it in mind. The first thing instantly was the fact that she specifically mentions a knowing at the beginning of the book that there was a Haymitch and then there was another Victor before Haymitch from District 12.
mhm.
Like specifically noting that multiple times. I don't know, because she mentions it at the beginning and then she picks it up, I think, in Catching Fire, mentioning that it was now there were three victors, but there was a fourth that she knew nothing about. The fact that they just scrubbed the tapes, there's only that one master tape of the Hunger Games, the 10th Hunger Games, I think is iconic. I think there's another one. Oh, I know what it is. I haven't shared my connection theory after reading Catching Fire. I wonder if I should announce it now.
Yes,
Um,
please.
okay,
Just
I'm
go for it.
copywriting this. I, after rereading Catching Fire, have decided that Lucy Gray is related to Maisley Donner. Mic drop.
I'm
What?
writing this down.
Write it down, mark the
What?
day and the time. I have a whole PowerPoint I'm working on currently, but it has to do with the relationship of the Mockingjay and the focus of the Songbirds and the Mockingjays. And just the fact how it later in the interview, I highlighted this. Ultimately, romanticism is a factor in bringing down Coriolanus in the Hunger Games. Katniss does it with the help of Lucy Gray's music. Conversely, the Katniss plant lends a hand to Lucy Gray in a time of need. She like seamlessly, this is a seamless connection and parallel between the worlds. And I don't know, I could go on. I will find every time I read it, I will find new connections to the books that just wouldn't have made sense. She wouldn't have been so lucky, if she just came up with it later.
I think she definitely knew about Lucy Gray as a character and knew what kind of person she was. And obviously, she was a victor that she went to the games. But I just can't see the narrative of Snow being her mentor, being developed back when she was writing the trilogy. Or, I mean, it's kind of confirmed that the end was unknown to Suzanne about Snow and Lucy Gray and what happened to them at the climax at the end of Ballad, because in this Q&A she is talking about the poem, how she found the poem and then was like, oh my gosh, this would be a really great end for the character.
But I feel like there's just so many perfect, it's like puzzle pieces. They just like connect that
Mhm.
just fill in the details so flawlessly.
I feel like she's good at connecting puzzle pieces. Like she'd be good at establishing those connections after the fact and
Mm,
making up points
but
that would connect with those pieces.
let's talk about the plot hole in Catching Fire where she could have told PETA the lightning plan. That was a mistake. That was a mistake on
That
her
was to
part.
get PETA hijacked.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was to break my heart.
yeah,
That's what that
exactly.
was.
I feel like that should be the question. If you are wanting to get the magenta copy of Ballad, like be entered to get the magenta copy from us, comment and decide with a new piece of evidence, this is homework, as to why you think Suzanne did have Ballad thoughts before she wrote The Hunger Games or after. So that's how you
Leave
get
a
it.
reason.
Leave a reason. That's
Cite
how
your
you get this.
sources.
Cite your sources.
People are, and don't be like, well, because the fiddler
Yes,
shows
yes,
back
we've
up
heard that
in
one.
District 13.
Okay, sorry, I
She
didn't mean
just
to cut
made
you off.
up
That was
that
just
connection.
perfect opportunity.
She was like, I gotta have a fiddler in the copy because there's a fiddler that shows up in District 13. That'll be fun.
And I think especially after talking with Professor Paradis, like there is so much research done on the Appalachian people, their culture, and especially music. And so connecting, how did she have the hanging tree and Deep in the Meadow and like all those songs from Katniss's dad? I don't know. Again, the emphasis on music as a theme too.
I think you're onto something, Holly.
You guys really think that she was writing Mockingjay, or like when she was writing the Hunger Games and like Snow first shows up, she knew that Snow was the mentor of another District 12 girl.
I I think she didn't have like a whole outline, like a whole novel ready to go, but I think she had it written down. I can at least see like these key details on like a sticky note on her fridge or something like that.
Hmm.
Pretty big sticky note.
But then all the connections between Katniss and Lucy Gray.
Well, we knew that Snow had to have some type of connection to District 12. And so it would make sense if she were to explore like why Snow, what is his
Wait, how do we
motivations?
know that Snow had a connection to District 12?
Did he not comment that he's been to District 12
He's been to
before?
District 12.
Right.
Well, he's
That is my
president.
thread.
He
Well,
probably has stopped
well,
by.
oh, going
Like to
to yeah,
emphasize it.
like he goes campaigns at the districts. Okay.
And also,
Yeah, why not?
isn't District 12 like the poorest district too?
It's the
So
poorest, yeah. And probably the smallest, I would assume, if it's the poorest.
mhm.
But
But then part
anyways,
of me,
yeah.
sometimes part of me wonders, this is like off topic, I've asked this before, but like, why didn't Snow get rid of the Hob? Why didn't he put up that fence? Like, I feel like, is there a soft side of Snow that just like holds this special like connection to like who he was in his past life? Like,
Because
I
when
don't
the
know.
trilogy was written, he had never been there like that.
No.
That's why.
I know, I think he didn't want to crush them. He It's the same reason why he came up with like the Tesserae.
Not the
And
Hope speech.
yeah, yeah, like quite literally. Like it's so he wouldn't crush their soul, because then you know what's going to happen? They're going to revolt. So or that resource is just going to totally die off, and then now he's going to have to make up for the lack of what District 12 is producing. So if you crush your soul so much, they're going to end up revolting. So then you just have to chain them instead of crushing them.
But like, he could have gotten rid of the house by the lake.
I don't know that one, Holly. I don't know.
Gabby, you're all knowing, you're all powerful.
Let me think about it for a second then. Why would he not get rid of the house by the lake?
Because Ballad never happened.
No, I refuse to believe that. Maybe okay,
I
so
do think that she really had the character of Lucy Gray, which by a different name because she hadn't made the connection with the poem yet where she got the name. But I think that she knew Lucy Gray existed and was probably an artist of some kind and probably introduced entertainment to the Hunger Games early on. But I think that's where it ends.
see, I think he had excuse me. I think she had more of Snow's background like fleshed out. More
Maybe
so
she
than he
did too
would
and
with
just
Lucy
hadn't
Gray.
connected the two. Maybe that's
Possibly, yeah.
the narrative that was created. I could see that.
That could be it, yeah.
I can see her having a lot of backstory on those two characters, and then the narrative that she creates for Ballad when she wants to put something together is having the two meet. That's where I would fall.
So you admit she
That there was an idea.
yeah, that there was an idea. There was a concept somewhere on a sticky note on the fridge.
I don't think she thought that she would write another book.
That wasn't the question.
I think she had some backstory for both Snow and this girl who won the games before. Yeah.
Because like also there's the whole Plutarch and the 74th games falling into the punch bowl, and you didn't realize that till he said that, or Katniss realized that. Like there's just these like little attention, like little bits of attention towards these characters, or like the mention of Joanna Mason in the first book as one of the tributes we learn about, or one of the victors we learn about, and then meeting her in Catching Fire. Like, I don't know, I just think, and my connection that Lucy Gray is related to Maisley Donner. There are a lot of connections that she makes between the characters and the worlds that I feel like she has maybe all these ideas, but then coming out with Ballad was just so timely too, because this book is so relevant, especially now, but definitely in the climate of 2020.
I love that quote that she
I know which one
says
you're
in
gonna
the
say.
Q&A
Yeah.
of why is the state of nature debate so timely?
Mhm.
And she says, here in the United States, we spend a great deal of time attacking one another for our liberal or conservative views, left or right, blue or red. But I think we've lost sight of a deeper issue, which is about democratic versus authoritarian rule and what it requires to sustain a democracy.
And like,
Yes.
this is something that this is a conversation that we have within our own friend group, because in the tribute talk panelists and friend group, there's very differing viewpoints and political beliefs and ideologies. And yet we are still in love with the same series that focuses on representing like our beliefs in a futuristic world. And so I think that this quote is really important because it emphasizes how people from all different beliefs and backgrounds can learn about themselves and their beliefs and see it reflected in Ballad especially.
Yeah, I think it's so
Yeah.
cool that you can use something like this book to be a bridge to be talking
Mhm.
about those types of issues. You know, if we want to talk about PETA or we want to talk about Gale or like what we think about Sejanus and all of that, I think it's just so
Or what
cool
we
to
think
use
about
literature in that way.
the food.
Yeah.
The food
There's topics
rankings.
for everyone.
The lunchbox. The lunchbox pail.
Had to
No.
get it in there.
Yes, I did.
The
No,
blue
I
drinks.
oh God. Let's not begin with the blue drink.
Sweet or savory.
Yeah, no, I love this quote so much because in 2020, like there were books being published of how democracies die and how like it's so important to protect like this concept of a democracy
Mhm.
or a democratic republic and how fragile it is yet because even though it is fragile, it is something that is worth protecting and fighting for. But yet there are things, forces, whatever it may be, systems that distract us and we end up turning on one another. And
Mm.
it makes us vulnerable to authoritarianism, but that's reflected within the Hunger Games.
Mhm.
Like it's you pit people against one another with hatred and you lose sight of the thing that's worth protecting and worth um learning about, worth talking about, worth fighting for.
Amen, Gabby.
Amen, Suzanne.
Amen, Suzanne.
Yeah. But altogether, it's just like this book just came out at such an important time. I don't know. And then I think it was also important because I always refer to Ballad as this, but Ballad was kind of the book calling out the people who hated Mockingjay or only like the Hunger Games because there was a Hunger Games in it. Like
Yes.
she's literally telling us to reflect on ourselves and our hunger and our greed as a society over the pain of other people,
Hmm.
which I always think is so important about Ballad.
Yeah. It's a good mirror.
Gabby, I just
So
need you to like seriously host a conference and you're just like the keynote speaker and you just go into all of these different panels about like this means this and this is this and blah blah blah, because I could listen to you for hours talk about this. Like this episode would literally be 5 hours. So
Well, I can and I do listen to you guys for hours. So yeah, let me host and let me host and be the keynote speaker. That's fine.
yeah.
the last thing in the Q&A that really stood out to me was when Suzanne is talking about how she came up with the character of Lucy Gray and her name and
Wait, I wanted to
everything.
talk about this. Yes.
Okay, you talk about it, Ollie.
Yeah.
I need to talk about it because also shout out to me. I got my Lucy Gray tattoo.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's so exciting. I love the
Beautiful.
Katniss and Lucy Gray with the like the
Thanks.
left and right. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
So my Lucy Gray tattoo, because I think, I mean, I love Katniss, but her character is just so interesting. Kind of like you were mentioning, Suzanne says, then there's the ambiguity of the color gray. I don't think that was an accident on Wordsworth's part, and the obliteration by Snow and the easy adaptation to a song. It met so many needs. Like her focus on ambiguity and Lucy Gray as a character, like I was kind of mentioning at the beginning of the episode, like, yes, Lucy Gray does fall under more of a romantic ideology, right? But she is also just like, we question her morals and what she's like, her reasonings, and is she actually the good person? And I think we're questioning, like, is she a snake as we read it more and more through? But it's just her actual name having the word gray, just being such a not black or white character is what I love.
It's wild that she found a poem that worked so well
So
for
perfect.
the character.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
love that she loved the ending of that poem so much that she made it the ending of the book, and
Mhm.
then said, I love leaving this very ambiguous at the end, just in case I want to fill it in later with another book in the world of Panem.
Another
It
book
shocked
is
to
gonna
me.
come out.
Okay, we always question, is she gonna have another book? If she was leaving the world open, what do you genuinely, not what you want, but what do you genuinely see her doing or picking up in another edition of this series?
I think if she fills in more and goes forward, it's going to be Plutarch related in some aspects, because he's kind of, he and Tigris, I think, because Tigris is part of Plutarch's group of rebels, but Plutarch is really leading that. So I would like to see how he goes from being in the family of an elite group to being the leader of the rebels. That's like, he's the missing piece for me,
Mm.
I think. If we
Mm.
go farther back, it would be really interesting to see the first rebellion.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's where my mind goes to, the first rebellion, seeing what the dark days looked like, or even what led up to it.
I think it was Chase and I that were talking about this. It would be like a Rogue One sort of part of the story, because we have the prequel and then we have the trilogy, and then we would have the kind of one-shot story where we follow like somebody from whatever side of the rebellion, and then their plan goes wrong or something like that.
I
Which
can
they
see
got
that
really
too.
close to winning too, right? So
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know. That'd be a good story.
All we can do is hope and ask Suzanne, please.
I feel kind of more positive about it
Yeah,
now,
so
I
do I.
think.
Now
Might
that
not be
it's in
anytime
writing.
soon, but
I think it has to be timely like Ballad.
she'll have something to say again
Oh,
eventually.
she certainly will.
Well, I wish that we could keep talking. We've already been like talking for an hour about this, but maybe we could talk more Ballad with Gabby again, which I think everyone will want us to do. So
We
Gabby
also
should come
have
back.
tribute talk, so I
Mhm.
feel like we could talk about these things more.
Oh
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
So join us with Gabby and with Tribute Talk. And again, if you missed out on the middle of the episode, go check back to see how you can win your magenta copy of Ballad from us. And join us for Tribute Talk and join us for Scholastic Read Along. There's so many book things going on. So join us for all of that. And we will see you next time. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.